This horror movie is based on a true story, and although it was made in 2021, the original event happened way back in the early 90s. Here's the real story behind the babysitter's last call. A young single mother named Dawn lived in a small town with her two kids, 7-year-old Joshua and 4-year-old Hannah. Her boyfriend, who was in the army, was away most of the time, so she relied heavily on the help from her friends and family to look after the children. One day, she asked her mother for some time alone without the kids, so Grandma volunteered to babysit while Dawn went out. But an hour into her night out, Dawn got a phone call from her mom saying that she had to leave because she had another commitment. Dawn told her mom it was fine and hung up the phone. She called another friend of hers, Tina, asking if she could come over and watch the kids, but Tina was busy too. Dawn tried calling a third friend, Tracy, but she also didn't pick up. And this is when Dawn started to panic. She thought maybe she should just go home and take care of the kids herself. But then she remembered she had plans with her boyfriend that night, so she decided to try one last time to call someone. This time she called her aunt, Helen, who agreed to watch the kids. And just when Dawn was about to breathe a sigh of relief, she got a phone call from her mom. Her mom told her that she was at the hospital and said that Dawn needed to come over. Dawn asked what had happened, but all her mom would say was, "It's serious. You need to get over here." Dawn told her Aunt Helen that she was needed at the hospital and asked her to keep in touch and let her know if anything happened. Then she drove off. At the hospital, she found out that her mom had fallen down the stairs and had a concussion. She stayed with her mom for the next few hours until she was well enough to be discharged. When she finally got home, both her kids and Helen were asleep, so she decided to go to bed as well. She woke up the next morning feeling more refreshed than she had in weeks. She went downstairs to find Helen and the kids eating breakfast. She asked Helen if everything was all right, and Helen responded by asking Dawn if she had taken Hannah to the doctor the day before. Dawn responded by saying, "No. Why would you ask?" And Helen said she only asked because she couldn't remember if Dawn had taken her niece to the doctor or not. Dawn was a little weirded out by her aunt's strange behavior, but she brushed it off and went upstairs to get ready for work. Meanwhile, Hannah started acting weird. She kept asking where her dolly was and kept saying that she had to go back to get her dolly. This was odd since they had left the doll at their home the day before. After Dawn took Hannah to school, she got a creepy phone call from an unknown number. The person on the other end of the line said, "Thank you for returning my property." Confused, Dawn asked what the person was talking about, but he hung up the phone. When Dawn got home from work, things were even weirder. Some of Hannah's toys were missing, including the doll that Hannah had been asking about. And then Dawn found something else that really scared her. All of her daughter's drawings from the day before were missing. The next day, Hannah came home from school upset because some of the other kids said that she smelled like a baby. On the way to Hannah's room, Dawn noticed that the smell wasn't coming from Hannah, but from inside her daughter's closet. To her horror, she found a pair of dirty diapers inside. And then she found something else that shocked her, a pacifier. But that wasn't all. As Dawn opened up the drawer to take the pacifier out, she found a small key. It looked like it might open one of the doors in the basement, so she went down there to check. At first, the door was locked, but then Dawn realized that the key fit perfectly in the keyhole. She opened the door and walked inside. The basement was dark and dusty, and it had clearly been a while since anyone had been down there. But there was one thing that caught Dawn's eye. In the corner, there was a wooden box. She opened it and found a bunch of old clothes and a teddy bear. Then she saw something that made her blood run cold, a diary. She opened it up and started reading. The diary entries were from Helen, and in one of them, Helen wrote, "Dawn will never know what I did with her kids. I can't believe she trusted me, though. I mean, she always has been a bit naive. I wonder how long it'll take before she finds out." Dawn was deeply disturbed by what she read, but she was even more worried when she realized that the entries were from the same day that she had taken Hannah to the hospital. What had her aunt done? And where were the kids? She searched everywhere, but they were nowhere to be found. She called the police, but they didn't seem to take her very seriously. They told her that her kids were probably just playing hide-and-seek, and they advised her to keep looking for them around the house. But Dawn knew her kids wouldn't be able to hide for that long. Where were they? Had her aunt kidnapped them? As night fell, Dawn heard a knock on the door. She opened it and saw 2 police officers standing there. She explained to them that her kids were still missing, but they told her that they had already searched the house and the backyard and that they weren't there. One of the officers suggested that Dawn should have a look in the basement. Maybe the kids had gone down there and gotten trapped. But Dawn had already checked the basement. She told the officer this, but he insisted that she should take another look. He even offered to shine his flashlight around the basement so she could see better. While they were searching, the officer noticed something that glistened in the darkness. He walked over to it and turned his flashlight on. "Is this your daughter's doll?" he asked. Dawn looked over and her heart sank. It was the same doll that her daughter had been asking about. But that wasn't all. The officer picked it up and turned it around. There was a small scratch on the back of the doll's head, and when the light hit it, it looked like a small red dot. Was it a bullet hole? He placed the doll on a nearby table and started shining his flashlight around the room. Suddenly, he let out a gasp. "I think we just found your kids," he said, and Dawn felt her blood run cold. Were they alive? She followed the officer into the corner of the basement where he was pointing his flashlight, and there in the darkness she saw 2 small figures lying on the ground. She ran over to them and cradled her children in her arms. They were cold to the touch. The police later said that Helen had taken the kids down to the basement to play with some of her old friends. Apparently, Helen had had a lot of creepy friends from a biker gang, and they had all pitched in to help her carry out her plan. But why? Why would she do such a thing? When Helen was arrested, she told the police, "I didn't do it. Those freaks did it. I couldn't stop them." She said that she had invited the bikers over to her house for a party, but things had gotten out of hand when they had attacked her niece and her great-nephew. She tried to defend them, but the bikers overpowered her, and then one of them suggested that they take the kids to the basement and play with them. Helen said she tried to object, but the bikers ignored her. She said she didn't want to hurt the kids, but they had made her hold a blanket over their heads so that they couldn't see what was going on. She said that she tried to make them stop, but they wouldn't listen. Eventually, the bikers lost interest in the kids and left. But unfortunately, it was too late. The kids were dead. Although Helen helped the police catch the bikers, she was still charged with murder. At trial, she pleaded guilty and was sentenced to life in prison. Now, this case had a lot of people scratching their heads. How could a seemingly normal family be related to a group of violent bikers? Well, it turns out that Helen's husband had been a member of the gang, and when he died, Helen took over his position. So now she was kind of like the godmother of the gang. And apparently, those guys weren't too fond of kids. In an interview from prison, Helen said that she regretted what she had done and that she couldn't believe that she had actually believed that she could protect those kids. She said that the bikers had threatened her, saying that if she didn't let them take the kids, they would hurt her next. She said that she knew she should have called the cops, but she was afraid that the bikers would hurt her even more if they found out. She said she was so sorry for what she had done and that she wished she could take it all back. But this begs the question, what would you have done in Helen's situation? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below.